So hi, gang. I wanted to give you a little bit of a different perspective when it comes to coding standards with, frankly, two of my former students that are in the thick of it. So both of them have very different experiences and also different backgrounds in what they're doing, and that's what we'll get into here in a moment. So I'm introducing Lee and then Megan. Both of them have been what? How long have you been in industry now, guys?
5 years, 4 or 5 years.
4 years. We've been working for 4 years. 2017, we graduated.
Okay. I couldn't remember. So I couldn't remember 16 or 17. So Megan, let me start off with you. And that is that when you and I talked before, you talked about working with both software coders and researchers, which were non-native coders in your research projects that you do. So how does coding standards affect your projects since you're working with people with various backgrounds?
So for a little bit of frame of reference, I work a lot with, I'm a robotics researcher at NIST, and a lot of my work involves code going into physical machines, which means that I often have to work with people like mechanical engineers and electrical engineers who may not necessarily be super familiar with, the rules of how you should be programming. And because we're in a research environment, it's not as strict or as structured as, say, a software engineering environment. We don't have a product that we're trying to get out there. We're just doing science incrementally. So you'll end up with, just a bunch of spaghetti code often from mechanical engineers that you sort of have to decipher. And what I've done in my own environments is I've tried to enable the people who I work with a few rules to make sure that when I look at their code, it's readable and understandable. Because when you're talking to somebody who hasn't done programming for a very long time, and maybe they're coming from a different background, they might think that, say, a variable with a one-letter name is appropriate and comprehensible, whereas, somebody who is maybe from a different area of work. So say you're a mechanical engineer and you're writing a single letter variable and you're talking to your computer scientist associate and they see that variable and they're like, what is this? Yeah. There's a breakdown of communication and the documentation needs to be there to back that up. Yeah.
So when you mean by documentation, you mean what exactly?
So say that it is appropriate, and sometimes it is, most of the time for undergraduate work and for a lot of commercial software engineering, it is not appropriate to have a single letter variable name, whereas in some science, it can be appropriate. You need to make sure that you write down what exactly that means in reference to the paper that you're transcribing your algorithm from and what that lines up with. Otherwise, you don't know what's going on and you can't replicate it in the future. Sure. Yeah, the future test.
Gotcha. Now, Lee, your background's very different than hers, only because of what work world you're in. You are working, if I'm not mistaken, with other coders and programmers of varying experience, and I'm sure they're from different, universities or backgrounds when it comes to education. So what is it like in your world when you talk about coding standards?
Yeah, so I'll also add some context. I'm working as a senior software systems engineer at the MITRE Corporation. We do a lot of prototyping and research and development for the government. So we work on stuff that kind of has faster timelines than maybe your normal project or product would. So what that means is having these standards and these conventions that people kind of adhere to means, as you move from project to project, as you work with different people, it's clear what the expectations are with the code that you're going to be handling and the code that you're going to be writing for them. I don't know how many times I've gotten my hands on a piece of code and went, holy crap, what was this person doing? And so I take it upon myself to be like, okay, I'm going to stick to this style, maybe just a style guide of here's how I'm going to structure the code. Here's how I'm going to do my comments, so that hopefully the next person that gets their hands on my code does not have the same moment that I have. One thing that we find is really good is, don't reinvent the wheel with this either. Every popular language has all kinds of different conventions and different options you can take for how you want to define your standards within a project. Pick something and stick with it. There are tools out there that make the decisions for you. And if everybody's on the same page, it doesn't really matter what format you go for, as long as everybody agrees to use the same one. There's definitely been a number of times where, just sticking with certain organizational conventions, project structure, code structure, has saved me a lot of time explaining stuff to other people and having stuff explained to me.
Now, as you know, that the students that are watching this probably have maybe literally no team experience. And I don't want to go down that path too far, because they will learn about it. And as you know, they will get into it in other courses. But what are the first is question for both of you. What are your sizes of your teams? Do they vary? And then I need you to talk about going back to coding standards. What does a team mean for the coding standards? So Megan, ladies first here. So chivalrous here. So if you can answer both of this for me, and then I'll go to Lee.
Yeah, so typically my projects range from me being a sole programmer on the assignment to there being 5, 10 people who touch the code that I work on. So that's a relatively small range. But that's with the caveat that because my code is research code, when I publish my papers and I have to publish my code alongside of it, I don't know how many other people are going to see that. It could be hundreds, So for that, when that goes out in the world, it has to be readable and consistent.
Lee?
So I've worked on teams where it's just been me and 2 other folks, to teams where it's me and a dozen other people. I've worked on all kinds, even though I've been working for one company, I've been working on all kinds of projects in my time there. What I find is that no matter exactly how big your team is, it's still important to make these kinds of decisions early on and stick by them. Like I said, you can be a little bit more flexible if the team's smaller, but as you have more people that need to get hands-on with stuff, kind of sticking to the procedures and the styles and agreed upon patterns becomes more important, because you're going to have so many more hands on this directly.
Gotcha. So, and as former students of mine, you can kind of go through this and been through this, is that what don't the students see at this point? They're just early in their career, especially when it comes to coding standards and actually being enforced in it. What are they not seeing that you wish you would have saw back then, but you see now when it comes to just coding standards, just the coding standards? Lee, you're smiling, so I'll start with you first on this one.
So I don't know how much you can affect seeing it now for them, but other people's code, funny enough, seeing examples of good code and seeing examples of bad code that's hard to understand really puts into perspective how important it is to write readable code. I know that when I was in college, like Megan said, my variable name sucked. Actually, I had a coworker that threatened to call you Mr. Lupoli and complain about how bad my variable names were. A lot of the sense of good code, good code design and good coding practices come from just seeing it and experiencing it, which unfortunately just comes with time. But it really does make a difference to kind of see okay, this is impossible to understand because A, B, and C are doing stuff and it doesn't tell me what they're doing.
So let me add on to that. Is it hard to understand because of there's no comments, it's not spaced correctly? What do you?
It can be, yeah. It can be a number of things. I mean, there's a number of conventions that you kind of no matter what programming language you're working in, stick around. So if you have logic that is 8 if statements deep, you've made a mistake somewhere. That can be simplified out in some way. Not using functions and just having one big function that does everything, and you got to keep track of, where the general logic of the application is versus where the specific logic of a certain part of it is. There's kind of common practices that help with that. If you've got code that needs to be called multiple times, don't repeat yourself. The dry principle comes up all the time. Move it into a function. That way it's easier to follow the main but see the specifics of that. Comments, when I was in college, because they took points off for not commenting, I put a comment on every single line. You don't need to do that, but
I remember
if you're doing
that, by the
something
way.
like if you're doing something weird, like, oh, I only read from index 1 of this array, or I started at index 1 instead of index 0 of this array, I don't know why you're doing that. If I'm reading your code, I have no idea what's going on. So putting a comment there is really useful for things that are kind of out of the normal. We all know how to read for loops, but the weird stuff you do inside the for loop might need to be commented on, stuff like that.
Megan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say for me, so I mean, obviously it clicked for me when I was like in college, but it didn't really hit me hard until I read some mechanical engineer code, and I understood exactly why I need to document things within.
Sorry to any
code.
mechanical engineers that watch this.
Mean, it was like a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
But like when I was still in college, I think that it hit more when I was TAing, and it was easier to grade and understand what the students were doing within their own code. So also like the reason to follow it right now, I know it seems pointless when it's just your own code, but your TAs and your professors really appreciate it when they're able to comprehend your code. And when it follows a style guideline that's about it for me.
Gotcha.
I think,
all right, gang, thank you both very much. That's what we wanted out of coding standards, was getting it really from those that are deeply in it and have been through what they're going through. So thank you both very much. Thank you very much.
I do have one more thing to add, by the way. Like I said before, don't reinvent the wheel. It doesn't hurt to get used to doing this stuff early. And a lot of big companies have made different like style guides for how you should write code. And there's like tools out there that will run through your code and like clean it up for you. It doesn't hurt to kind of get into the habit of, before I send this off to be graded, let me just run the formatter on it one more time to make sure that it kind of is a little easier to read for the person who's grading it. Because also as a former TA, they appreciate that. That's all. I just think it's good to know that it's pretty easy to start using this stuff. And it's an easy habit to form and a very useful one to have. Sorry, I didn't mean to ruin your ending.
No, you didn't ruin anything. So, all right, gang. So again, I appreciate everything. And hopefully this will be informative for the students, and I'll let you know. Let's put it that way. So thank you both very, very much.